Namaste. We are going to get on right away. To do that, I'll kindly request all of you to kindly stand so that we can observe all protocols for the national anthem. We'll be playing the Guyana national anthem, followed by the Indian one. Thank you. Kindly be seated. Namaste once again. Dr. Bharajagdeo, Dr. Subramaniam, Jaishankar, His Excellency, Dr. K.J. Srinivasa, all honorable ministers, members of the diplomatic corps, special invitees, guests all, namaste to each and every one of you. I'm Ashwini Saran. I'm an educator and I'm a radio host on the weekends on MUD 97.5 FM. And I'm going to be your MC or your host for tonight's Indian Diaspora Reception 2023. In 1838, when our ancestors came from the incredible India, they brought with them an abundance of customs and traditions. Despite all the trials and tribulations our ancestors were challenged with, they continued practicing their way of life, blessing us with a beautiful cultural heritage, lending to our country's rich diversity. Today, I'm truly proud to say, in Guyana, after 185 years, those customs and traditions are still very much alive. His Excellency Dr. K.J. Srinivasa alluded to that fact on his many occasions after traveling extensively across Guyana and witnessing this, of course. This event is in honor of the visiting Honorable Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, who has been remarkably representing India internationally and also to all the Indo-Guyanese diaspora. And it is being facilitated by our very own High Commission of India, led by Dr. K.J. Srinivasa. Tonight's program promises to mesmerize, educate, and connect you to your Indian roots. Without further ado, I kindly request all of you to, once again, stand as we observe protocols and listen to prayers by a Christian prayer by Pastor Ronald Magaral, followed by a Hindu prayer by Pandit Kamraj Prasad, then a Muslim prayer by Siddhi Neil Bacchus. Pastor Magaral.
Protocol already established. Let us please all bow our heads and our hearts in reverence to the Almighty God. There is God and Father, Creator and Sustainer of the heaven and the earth. We thank you for our spared lives and the many blessings that you have poured forth upon us. We thank you, Father God, for the opportunity to work, to raise up this nation as your sons and daughters make the effort that Guyana can become the ideal nation that you created it to be, oh God. So we thank you for our visitors from India. We thank you for all those who are in the diaspora. We thank you, O Lord, for even the times when we are not aware, we know that you are there supporting our lives and wanting to make us into true sons and true daughters. So we thank you and we ask for your abundant blessing upon every aspect of this activity today so that we can grow from strength to strength and be a blessing to you, our beloved Creator, and a blessing to one another. Bless this nation, please, O God. Bless our leaders, political, academic, and community, and religious leaders. Bless all, Father, to find that common ground for us to work and bring peace and harmony in our beloved nation. All these mercies I ask in the precious name of Christ our Lord, all the prophets and saints and martyrs and great men and women who live for your glory. Amen. Amen. Amen.
We recognize that nothing is possible without God's grace and blessings. In every undertaking in life, it requires God's intervention. And the only way in which that can be accomplished is through prayers. Prayers are pivotal for the development of our lives. As such, we bow to the altar of Bhagavan, the remover of obstacles and impediments in our lives. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakote Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Dev Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
My dear brothers and sisters, I indulge in you to raise your hand as we seek God's almighty blessing. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. All praise and thanks and gratitude are due to Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, Master of the day of judgment. You alone do we worship, you alone do we ask for help. Guide us onto the straight path, the path of whom you have blessed, not the path of those who, on your anger, have gone astray. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we express our gratitude to you for this gathering, and know the presence of our Minister of External Affairs, the Government of India, the Honorable Dr. Jai Shankar. We thank him for his contribution and support to our beloved country, Guyana. We pray Allah continues to shower his protection, mercies, and blessing on our dear minister, and of course on all of us who are present here, and that our minister continue to do his work with wisdom, humility, and compassion. Bless the government of India, the local Indian High Commission, our hard-working and dynamic government, our leaders at the local, regional, and national level, our members of parliament, and all stakeholders as they work in collaboration with each other for the upward development of our beloved country. Allahumma ameen, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Thank you for being such a cooperative audience and taking your seats. To begin our cultural program this evening, I'd like to call upon Ms. Varsha Chowdhury. She'll be doing the first dance performance, and this is a Devi Vandana, or a Devi Stuti. It's a prayer to the Supreme Goddess titled Bhairavi Jai Bhairavi.
सर्वधारमहाशक्तिरूपिणि स्वाधिष्ठाने स्थिते देवी सर्वाशयदायिनि सर्वधारमहाशक्ति मूलाश्रयवासिनि स्वाधिष्ठाने स्थिते देवी सर्वाशयदायिनि मणिपुरे जगज्जननी सर्वजीव सुपालिनी अर्ध अनहतकामेशि त्रिकोणातरवासिनि मणिपुरे जगज्जननी सर्वजीव सुपालिनी अर्ध अनहतकामेशि त्रिकोणातरवासिनि भैरवी जय भैरवी भैरवी जय भैरवी भैरवी जय भैरवी भैरवी जय भैरवी ईशान्यसमुखे देवी निखिलविश्वसगर्भिणि पूर्णिमादिने भूते दाक्षकैलाशशङ्करी प्राणप्रतिष्ठित श्यामलिङ्गस्वरूपिणी भक्तरक्षिणि मुक्तिदायिनि देवी लिङ्गभैरवी प्राणप्रतिष्ठित श्यामलिङ्गस्वरूपिणी भक्तरक्षिणि मुक्तिदायिनि देवी लिङ्गभैरवी भक्तरक्षिणि मुक्तिदायिनि देवी लिङ्गभैरवी भैरवी जय भैरवी 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 भैरवी जय भैरवी
Thank you all for showing your appreciation. It really means a lot. I can tell you really understood and enjoyed that beautiful, very graceful performance by Ms. Varsha Chaudhary. She is a Kathak dance teacher of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Georgetown. Next in our program, we have the very beautiful and very melodious Ms. Uma Desabhutla, who will be singing for you Vande Mataram, which was the rallying cry for the freedom fighters of India.
Vande Mataram Vande Mataram Sujalam Sufalam Malayaj Sitalam Sasyasyaamalam Mataram Vande Mataram Shubhrajyotsna Pulakitayaminim Pullakusumita Drumadalashobhinim Suhasinim Sumadhurabhashinim Sukhadam Varadam Mataram Vande Mataram कोटि कोटि कंठ कल कल निनाद कराले कोटि कोटि भुजैर्धृत खर करवाले के बोले माँ तुमि अबले बाहुबलधारिणीं नमामि तारिणीं रिपुदलवारिणीं मातरं वन्दे मातरम् तुमि विद्या तुमि धर्म तुमि हृदि तुमि मर्म त्वं हि प्राणशरीरे बाहुदे तुमि मा शक्ति हृदये तुमि मा भक्ति तोमारय प्रतिमा गणि मंदिरे मंदिरे मातरं वन्दे मातरम् त्वं हि दुर्गा दश प्रहरणधारिणीं कमला कमलदलविहारिणीं वाणी विद्यादायिनीं नमामि त्वां नमामि कमलाम् अमलाम् अतुलां सुजलां सुफलां मातरम् श्यामलां सरलां सुस्मितां भूषितां धारिणीं भारिणीं मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरम् धन्यवाद।
I'm sure you'll agree Ms. Desabhutla is truly gifted. A very melodious song indeed. I'd like to request the presence of the Indian High Commissioner to Guyana, His Excellency Dr. K.J. Srinivasa, who has been actively involved in a number of projects focused around promoting the Indian culture and overall presence in Guyana, to deliver his remarks. Dr. K.J. Srinivasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Namaste. Good evening. His Excellency Vice President of Guyana, Dr. Bharat Jagdev, Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, Honorable Cabinet Ministers of Guyana, Honorable Donald Ramotar, former President of Guyana, Honorable Members of Parliament of the National Assembly of Guyana, members of the Indo-Guyanese diaspora, the non-resident Indians in Guyana, my dear students, members of the media, brothers and sisters. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this Indian diaspora community reception in honor of the visiting dignitary from India, the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. It is his first visit to Guyana, which is also coincidentally the first ever by an Indian External Affairs Minister of India to Guyana. I heartily welcome Honorable Dr. S. Jaishankar and the official delegation to Guyana. I make use of this opportunity to welcome all the Indian diaspora members, and we are very proud that many of you here have achieved very high positions in Guyana. I believe that Honorable Dr. Bharat Jagdev, his cabinet colleagues, the former President Dr. Donald Ramotar, the business persons who have assembled here of Indian origin, and the non-resident Indians who have made Guyana their home, all of you symbolize the strength of the Indo-Guyanese diaspora, the Indian genes, if I may say so. You are all involved in leading Guyana into a great developmental path. I use this opportunity to also mention to you that it's heartening to see this event full of brethren from all walks of life. The 185 years Indo-Guyanese historical relationship is a very cherished one for all of us who have gathered here. The trials and tribulations which all your ancestors went through when they came here as indentured laborers since 1838 are examples of human suffering, but also of the success of hard work, patience, the grit and determination in the face of adversity. Their dedication to make a better life for their descendants is the reason why so many of you have achieved success in your life currently. When I first came to Guyana, I was amazed to see the continuation of Indian traditions, customs, culinary skills, as well as rituals in Guyana. It was as though I had stepped into a time capsule of India from the 19th century, when I heard, say, the chautal being sung in temples, seeing the Guyanese marriages and eating the 7 curry. The celebrations of Eid, Ramzan, Phagwa, Diwali, and other festivals gives us a glimpse of the richness of this land of many waters and is an outstanding example of unity in diversity. The peaceful coexistence of multiple ethnicities and religions, along with the co-celebration of all the above festivals, are great examples of true secularism for the world. We are now blessed to have such a diaspora who have committed themselves to sustaining their ancient customs, but are also contributing actively towards the promotion of Indo-Guyanese bonds. I am very happy to inform you about various schemes that the Government of India, the ITech scholarships, the ICCR, the No India programs, etc., which we believe are enriching the skills and capacity building of the nation. I take this opportunity once again to welcome you all heartily for having participated in this reception, and we hope that you enjoy each other's company and also to listen to the dignitaries who are present here, especially Honorable Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. I think Dr. S. Jaishankar's coming to Guyana and giving us this wonderful opportunity to get together at this community reception deserves our grateful thanks. I know that many of you are here fans of the Honorable Minister, and I indeed have an active network of many of you who love his speeches and videos, and they share it with me and his active defense of India and India's policies. This is the reason why this community reception in his honor has swelled in numbers, as you can see, with many of you approaching me proactively to be invited to this event. So it's my honor and privilege once again to welcome you all to this event. Enjoy the evening. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. K.J. Srinivasa. I would now like to call the performance from National Dance Company. They'll be doing an item called Dancecapades. This is choreographed by Vivian Daniels. Presenting to you, National Dance Company.
कृधाति धागे ना धुन घेना धागे ना धा तेटे के ताके थने धागे ना धुन तुन तुन तुन्ना तुन्ना घेना घेना के ताके थने धा घेना 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 Dhina khena dhagena dha. Tete kata, kata, kata.
The ladies were very energetic indeed. You saw I almost did not make it on stage. But of course, you showed your appreciation, which really meant a lot. That was a national dance company for you. Now I'd like to invite some of our diplomats on stage. I would like to invite on stage the Speaker of the House, Mr. Manzoor Nadir, Vice President of Guyana, Dr. Bhara Jagdeo, External Minister, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, High Commissioner, Dr. K.J. Srinivasa, and Madam Mrs. Commissioner Ashwini, kindly come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, while they're making their way on the stage, I just want to say to all of you, Thank you so much for showing your appreciation all the time. You do understand that this is a very special occasion because we have so many diplomats with us. And of course, we are able to hear from so many persons and see the cultural aspects of Guyana still being very much alive here. We are truly blessed here this evening, as you can see and look around this area. But we have someone here with us who has been working internationally for the Indian government for a number of years. And sorry, if I'm going to call that number, we might want to question what are your secrets to the physical fitness, so we won't put a number there. But we would say that the Honorable Minister Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar was a member of the India Foreign Service who served as a former Indian ambassador to the US, China, and Czech Republic, the High Commissioner to Singapore, Foreign Secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs, along with several other key positions in Sri Lanka, Hungary, Russia, and Japan. He graduated from Delhi University's St. Stephen's College and holds 2 master's degrees, one in political science and the other in international relations. He also has a PhD in international relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University with a specialization in nuclear diplomacy. His father, K. Subramaniam, was the author of India's nuclear doctrine. He was the chief architect of the India-US nuclear deal and is known to defend India and Indian foreign policy across the world, with many of his speeches gone viral because of his mic drop responses, acquiring millions of admirers across the world. I humbly request the Honorable Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar to give his remarks at this time.
Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdev, Honorable Speaker, former President Donald Ramatar, Cabinet Ministers, Members of Parliament, dear friends. It's really for me a matter of great pleasure to be in Guyana, and I don't say this as a diplomatic phrase. I don't say this because today I went to the monument for Indian arrival. I looked at a set of statues which all of you are familiar with, and for me the expressions, the posture, the underlying sentiment, it brought home to me that I was really in a very special country, in a very special society. Earlier in the morning, I had joined members of the community at Sri Ramakrishna Temple, and there too I had the opportunity to observe that there were objects of worship which those who had come here without really knowing where they were going had carried with them, because in a sense this was the home that they brought here. Now I mention this because for a lot of us in India, when we look at those societies which have been forged over a century, in this case over 180 years, by those who went out with so much courage, with so much fortitude, with such a belief in their ability to survive and do well in a completely foreign environment, I can only communicate to you that, you know, we look at that diaspora with an enormous sense of admiration. And your successes, your challenges, sometimes your travails, are certainly very much in the heart of people in India. And so when we speak today of, a tradition of good relations, I can say that pretty much for every country in the world. But I do want to say, when I come to Guyana, that it is something much deeper, something much closer, something much more emotional. And in many ways, my presence here today is an expression of that. Now, I've been here 3 years, and I'm sure some of you at least are wondering what I have been doing with myself. Well, to start with, I have spent time with the Honorable Vice President and the Honorable Speaker, with many of the ministers, with the President. And our discussions really were about how to forge a partnership between Guyana and India, which was fit for purpose in the contemporary era. And the immediate, I would say, the motivation, the catalyst for this exercise was actually 2 very important visits we had, visits from President Irfan Ali and from Vice President Bharat Jagdev, which, if at the risk of embarrassing the Vice President, I would say really have had a kind of an electric impact on the relationship. So it's always been a very good relationship between us. We have always, as we've watched Guyana progress, as we've seen, the various developments, political, economic, social here, there's always been a sort of a fair amount of attention and focus where India is concerned. But I want to say that, thank you, I want to say that something actually has changed. Something has changed for the better. There is today an energy and a focus and a commitment in the relationship, which I can say as someone who's been around a long time, as the MC very politely was trying to say, which for me is really quite remarkable. Now, what is it that has changed? From an Indian perspective, actually, we see a Guyana which is poised to enter a new era, which is looking at prospects and a potential which perhaps it could not have imagined a decade ago, and for whom partnerships, time-tested partnerships and old friendships and strong relationships could have a very different meaning. That a Guyana which is really girding itself up to play a much more prominent role in the region, perhaps in the global economy, it is also a Guyana which is ready for a higher level of partnership with a country like India. A second factor is, in a sense, an empathy between what is happening in India and what we see is happening in this country. I'd be very happy perhaps to address some of the aspects of the transformation later when we get into, we have a question answer interactive session. But if I were to sum up in a sense the outlook in India, it is really an outlook, when we talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, which is really, and Sabka Prayas, which is really a collective effort, a non-discriminatory effort, a national effort, really to build society. But it's not just the effort which is there. There is, for the Modi government a very profound commitment to what is called ease of living, which is to approach the governance process through the eyes of the average citizen, to see what it is we can do to make people's living easier, to make the delivery of services more effective, to relieve the ordinary person of the difficulties of dealing with the system, if you would. And when we look at what we are doing in India, certainly, you know, a lot of what today I see the government in Guyana trying to do, I think it resonates with us. Now, it resonates with us also because many of the efforts underway in India, they clearly are, obviously this is India, so they're on a very big scale. But it's not just the scale. We think many of them also have a resonance, have an application, have a relevance beyond India. And some of that in terms of new capacities, new, I would say, new technologies, a different confidence. Those changes in India, I've been very, I would say, impressed to see that in some way or the other they're actually reflecting on the Indo-Guyanese relationship. And I'll give you a few examples. Just before this, I was with His Excellency the President as he was inaugurating a new ferry which had been received from India. This ferry, I believe, if I get the details wrong, please forgive me, I'm only 3 days old in this society, but I'm told it would connect to Region 1 in a very efficient way. It has the potential really to transform the movement of people, the movement of goods, the economies, in a sense, the sociology of this country, not just of this country. If this ferry is followed up with additional orders, it could actually have a larger implication even in respect of neighbors like Trinidad and Tobago. So for me, the fact that a ferry made in India could come to Guyana, become immediately relevant to important local needs, have an impact on the everyday life of people. This to me is actually the foreign policy that I have been mandated to practice by Prime Minister Modi, which is a foreign policy not just to better the lives of the Indian people, but really to better the lives of the international community, but looking at it really from a human-centric point of view. A second example of this was also, I took time off between my meetings yesterday to go and visit a project which is happening as we speak in this country. It's a road building project. And as I discovered, you know, look, as someone who's only traveled on roads, I mean, you ask yourself, how hard is it? How hard can it be to build a road? And I learned yesterday that it can be very hard to build a road because there are often very complex challenges of terrain and of geology and geography which need to be addressed. But I cite this to you as examples today of how the relationship is actually making itself felt in very, very practical terms. Yesterday evening, the President was gracious enough to host an event in my honor. And I also had a chance at the end of the evening to meet a bunch of service officers who had been trained in India, Guyanese service officers. And I reflected on that because again, I can see today how much the training and the exchanges the capability programs that we do, what an impact it is actually having in a partner country. So, yes, I know there are interesting, WhatsApp messages and, these argumentative clips, but I do want to tell you that life really is much more than just about arguments and positions. What we do make a real difference in societies. When we speak about friendship, this is not a phrase, it is not even just a sentiment. It is something which actually, if translated into reality with dedication and commitment, can make a very big difference to the lives of people. Now, I have spoken at some length about what we are doing between India and Guyana, but I'd like to put it to you all in a certain context, because we are in different parts of the world, and it's not just the distance which is a factor. I mean, of course, there are commonalities of history and ethnicity, but there is also the context of how the world is changing. And the world today, if any of us were to look at the last, 3-4 years, we have seen events happen around us which none of us could have imagined. Events which have impacted every one of us personally, but events from which it is extremely important to draw lessons. And let me start actually with the biggest event, which is a once-in-a-century event, COVID. Now, yes, COVID came, some people would say it's gone, it's not entirely gone. Yes, we helped each other, all of us during that period. India, for example, sent vaccines out to a number of countries, not just vaccines, but other medicines as well. But there are lessons to be drawn from that. There are lessons to be drawn about health security, about health spending, about health preparation. So when I speak about a foreign policy which is aimed at making the lives of people better, today for me, when I come to Guyana, part of the discussions I've had with the Honorable Vice President and the President was really what can we do in terms of our partnership to contribute to capabilities here, because at some time, it won't be the same pandemic, but at some time it is very likely that some similar challenge would come. And what that challenge showed was that, in a sense, a lot of countries kind of built walls, they protected themselves behind what they thought were national barriers. And much of the world was left to fend for itself, and surely we cannot allow that to happen again. And that really means that every region in some way must have at least a basic ability to secure its health. A second problem, which I must tell you, I personally experienced at that time, was actually something even more basic, which was of food. Because supply chains were disrupted, because shipping was disrupted, because air freighters didn't run, actually there were regions of the world which worried about where their next meal would come. I mean, I can still remember, because it was around the same time, it was Ramzan time at that time, and you had a number of Gulf countries, for example, worrying because they were crucially dependent on food exports from India. So a second big lesson from that period is actually food security. And then there is the further lesson, which is even if you were to put health and food aside for a moment, that we had all actually slipped into a globalization model which made us extremely vulnerable to risks in a few parts of the world. So if you were to ask me today, what is actually a core aspect of the foreign policy that I apply myself to, it is actually to de-risk the global economy, to make sure, God forbid, that if something happens tomorrow, that each one of us in different corners of the world have that ability to cope with it better than we did in the last 4 years. And I am saying this to you at some length because if on top of this you add the consequences, the implications, the repercussions of what happened from the Ukraine conflict, the energy problems, the food price increases, the fertilizer problem, we are actually looking at a world where in fact the uncertainties have risen very sharply, and some of it are immediate actions, but in a way, quite honestly, I think the world is also paying for its sins. What we are seeing in terms of increasingly frequent climate events of greater intensity with each year. There was a period when we thought of a cyclone or some kind of natural disaster as the exceptional event of that era. What we are actually seeing is almost every year, sometimes more often than that, you have a major climate event somewhere, and these today need to be factored in as we try to run a more efficient and a more effective international order. So I see these really as the larger context in which there is a very strong case for India and Guyana to forge a closer relationship. I can see already in the last few years, we are beginning at a practical level. I mean, trade, for example, has gone up because Guyana has become an energy exporter. Health, trade has also gone up because the demand for pharmaceuticals and health-related imports from India to Guyana have also gone up. We need to look at these common concerns, as I said, concerns about health, concerns about security, concerns even about wellness, because again, wellness is something which we take much more seriously after all being cooped up during the COVID period. So there is a very, I would say, a different agenda out there, an agenda which can be advanced because today you have two governments who in many ways approach their respective societies in a human-centric manner with the welfare of the people at heart, trying to see whether their partnership can deliver for the relationship. So that is really what has been the purpose of my mission. I can say that in many ways I go back both satisfied in a way, but also definitely motivated, but in some ways also challenged, because I think the more we discussed in the last few days, I see really a far bigger agenda than perhaps I saw when I came into this country 3 days ago. So what I can say to you very confidently, that this relationship clearly is going to very move to a completely different level. Some of the examples I cited to you are just harbingers of what is to come. But I would conclude again by returning to the beginning of my remarks, which is for us, Guyana is a very special partner. It's a partner because in many ways it's the shared traditions, the heritage, the culture, and all of this is underpinned by a belief really in societal and political values. I would say that it's always important to remember that as pluralistic societies and as political democracies, as market economies, we share really the fundamental principles, and countries that do have the ability to work together much more closely than those that don't. So Once again, I'm really thankful to all of you that you have joined me this evening. I'm very appreciative of the Vice President and the Speaker that they too have made time. Once again, I want to say I'm really extremely pleased, very, very happy at being amongst you today. And I look forward to coming back, hopefully in the not very distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar. You spoke a lot about unity, and of course, yesterday and today talks about unity, and there is a beautiful chaupai from Ramayana. Jaha sumati taha sampatinana, jaha kumati taha vipatinidhana, which basically says, very shortly, where there is unity, there is strength. And we can see that happening yesterday and today, and of course in the future. Our next speaker is someone who has been serving as the Vice President of Guyana since 2020 in the administration of Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali. And of course, he also holds a number of global leadership positions in the area of sustainable development, green growth, and climate change. He also has a number of mic drop responses to his interviews, I can assure you that. And apart from that, Dr. Jagde has been receiving a number of awards over the years for all of the work he has been doing and continues to do. In Guyana, we also have One Guyana Drive Force. Dr. Jagde is also behind that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the podium His Excellency, Vice President of Guyana, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaishankar, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. On the way up to the ballroom, I said to the High Commissioner, I'm not going to speak tonight for two reasons. One is that most of you here have heard me speak many times before. And two, that it is a rare opportunity to have a distinguished diplomat and thinker like Dr. Jaishankar in your midst. And so we must use the short time we have to capitalize on his presence and listen to him. Nevertheless, I think I should, first of all, thank the Indian government and Dr. Jaishankar for being here. We appreciate your presence in Guyana. We want to thank you for the Indian government breathing energy into this relationship. The two trips that were made that Dr. Jaishankar referred to allowed us an opportunity to see the amazing changes in India. But also, had we not had the kind of attention from the Indian government, then this would have been like one of those usual trips that are made abroad. You sign lots of agreements and then nothing happens. But this one is followed up by a number of serious actions. And as a result of all of the understandings, the engagements, the MOUs that were signed in India, we have now had a series of practical involvement and discussions that would lead to outcome in a very short period in almost all the sectors. And you're going to see a major Indian presence here in the agricultural sector, largely because we're trying to pay a lot of policy attention to that sector, given the need, particularly in the new dynamics now with us being an oil producer, to keep the economy balanced away from the Dutch disease, which is a curse of many countries that have had windfall revenue. You would see major Indian presence in almost every sector of our economy. So this is very important. And I had to remark to Dr. Jaishankar, we know of his caliber and the issues that he's dealing with. India is a global power. India's voice on any matter of global significance is important. And he is the voice, the external voice of India. So he has a large number of responsibilities of global significance. Yet I was amazed at his attention to even the smallest details of this engagement with us. You know, going through a brief with us dealing with some small, a few aircrafts, which are in India's and the scale of India probably would mean practically nothing. For Guyana, it means a lot. But to pay that level of attention to the small issues, it speaks a lot about his character and the willingness to make this relationship fruitful, for which we are grateful. The usual thing is that when diasporas meet, they recite the history and the struggles and how hard it has been and their contribution to the society. And I'm sure that you all know that about the struggles of Indo-Guyanese to carve out a place in this country. That struggle took place in the period when we were under colonial rule, and then the 3 decades when we didn't have democracy in this country. There was a major assault on things Indian. But not just things Indian, because in the colonial period, their way, it has started with slavery, and their way of total subjugation was to strip people of their identity and their culture, their religion, almost everything. And that was how they were hoping to achieve total subjugation of the Africans who were brought here as slaves. And then also, the assault was, when indentureship started, the same assault took place on people of Indian origin to strip them of their culture. As late as the 1950s, you couldn't get a job in the public service in Guyana unless you were Christian. Couldn't be Hindu or Muslim and get a job in the public service. So even jobs in the government were preserved unless you made a conversion. So Indo-Guyanese have played a major role in the changes in this country. The fight for freedom, you know, of Chedi Jagan leading that fight, and then the fight to return to democracy. And now they make a contribution everywhere. But they could not have done this unless they retain the culture and the resilience of the Indian genes that the High Commissioner mentioned, the entrepreneurship that they brought to this country, and the resilience to tackle struggle and not give up. And so we have to be grateful to India for that. But today, in this new era, most of us know India through Bollywood. You know, people here know the latest songs, etc. But we don't know what's really happening in India and the changes in India. And so personally, Dr. Jaishankar, I was grateful. Every one of those 6 ministers I met when I went to India, and the president and the vice president in a short visit, every one of them had clarity of vision and a purpose. And that is, you rarely find that in governments. So we've seen globally Prime Minister Modi redefining India. And development doesn't take place by chance. You can have many governments, but if you don't have a focused government, a government that is clear about what it wants to achieve nationally and internationally, then you find that your term in office just disappears. And that is what I found in India. The Prime Minister Modi is tackling the things, and with his cabinet and a very efficient group of ministers and the caliber of Dr. Jai Shankar. They're tackling the major things that are, we see the result of India now becoming one of a major economy in the world, overtaking many other countries to be the third largest economy in the near future in the world. But it's not happening by chance. And we see India playing a role dealing with energy security at home, but also on the solar side, helping to inform the debate on climate change, playing a role there, a global role. We see a lot of the systems necessary to change an economy. They may be very controversial, but they are being tackled in India and with a government that is single-minded in purpose. That's why I said to Dr. Jai Shankar, and when I returned to Guyana, I said to the president and others, this is an economy where the rate of change, the momentum, is probably the fastest in the world. And we know that among the large economies in the world, India is changing the most rapidly, has the highest economic growth. And it's happening because of the policies of the government. Age-old policies that maybe have been tabooed before Prime Minister Modi came into office, systems that were holding back India now being either reformed or renewed to give greater energy to that drive. And that is why you see the excitement and the growth. And we can't communicate that unless you see it. And many of us don't know about those changes because only in the diaspora, we only know about the music through Bollywood. And so I'm hoping that we're working now to try to make travel easier between the two countries and to many other countries, but between the two countries, that people will go. The business community that went with the president and came with me to India, they were blown away because they were doing comparisons with sourcing material from elsewhere, the quality of the stuff, and the changes there. And they all came back doing something because we made it clear, you're not just going there on a joyride. And so we need more of that. Our business travelers going to India, exploring supplies, and also we're hoping there are lots of Indians here who came with the vice president. Guyana is going to be receptive. We're opening up our economy, and we welcome investments from India. You would find a receptive government here, but from any part of the world for that matter. So, as I said before, I'm not going to make a speech tonight. Dr. Jai Shankar, we're so happy to have you here. We're blown away by the changes that are coming about because of the clarity of purpose that your government has in India and because of the hard work it's doing, even sometimes controversial work to effect those changes. We welcome the partnership and the support, and we want to thank you for your own efforts and giving impetus to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdeo. And I would just like to reiterate the words I've been hearing at every of these events. Guyana is open for business, okay? It is out there, it is said. If you are an ardent follower of Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, you would know that he always facilitates a question and answer segment, and that will be happening now. So if you have a question, kindly raise your hands. The staff will also be with you here giving you the mic. I'll just have one short thing to say. First, introduce yourself. Yes, we already have somebody here with a question. Kindly just introduce yourself first, then ask the question very briefly if possible. And of course, your question will be answered. We have a mic for sir? A mic for sir.
Don't ask when he's going to fix the road in Blackpool's phone.
Thank you very much. I'm Praveen Dave, originally from India, I'm the CEO of a local bank for last 22 years, and I'm in this country for last 25 years. First of all, congratulations, Dr. Jaishankar and Prime Minister Modi, that your efficiency and your work in Guyana have really made us proud in this country. People are talking about India, our achievement, your contribution is really great. My question is, there are two bottlenecks in dealing with in going to India and coming from India. One is the visa. Okay, recently UK made visa-free travel for Guyanese. Why Indian government can allow visa-free travel for all Guyanese and vice versa? Second small question is, yesterday it was mentioned that it is really very troubling to travel to India from USA or some other country. We need an airline route directly from Guyana to India. If not, it could be from here to Gulf countries, like Abu Dhabi or Doha, which will facilitate the travel of all people living in this hemisphere to travel to India through a route. If it is there, it will facilitate all the travel, develop business very greatly, and both the countries will be highly beneficial. Thank you.
Well, I agree with you on the travel. I discovered it for myself when I came here. It wasn't the easiest, neatest way of getting around. But look, my sense is today, at least where Indian carriers are concerned, they are all privatized. There's a big change going on in the Indian aviation space. Clearly, at the moment, all across the world, the aviation sector is under stress. They all took a hit during COVID. But clearly, demand in India is strong. Airlines are quite optimistic. So you would have seen reports of some very big aircraft orders which have been placed out of India. So I would very confidently predict that you would have many more services coming out of India to the rest of the world. Now the challenge is the rest of the world has to mean you. How do you draw them in? I feel that if, or not if, I would say when, our relationship becomes more substantive, when there's more business going, after all, typically, what does an airline do? The airline doesn't look, it looks at a viability, okay? It doesn't do a sentiment analysis. It does a traffic analysis. So airlines will look at what is the viability of the traffic. I can see a relationship which will grow big enough in the coming years to create that kind of viability. Certainly from the side of the government, we do encourage airlines to prioritize countries where there is a strong Indian diaspora. So there will be no lack of effort on our part. But my own sense is you also have to, in a sense, give credit for market to do its work in that regard. Your question about the visa. Look, we today in India do e-visas for most of the world, including Guyana. I don't know if anybody has had a problem applying for e-visas and finds it difficult. If you do, I would be very interested to hear it. But I would actually suggest to you that an e-visa is better than a visa on arrival, because in an e-visa, an immigration person in India already has your details. All they have to do when you land up in India is to very quickly validate what you're carrying on your passport against what they have on the database. If we give you visa on arrival, you actually, the work on e-visa, which you're sitting comfortably doing in your home in Guyana, you will actually have to do it on an airport counter in Delhi, probably at 2 o'clock at night. So I would actually suggest in a way that maybe the current system may be better than the one which you are so ardently advocating. That part of it you should
Yes,
have.
I'll deal with that.
Yes, he will deal with that. But look, again, I would, as the minister who deals with visas, I actually like taking visa feedback. If any country, any category tells me I'm having a difficult time, I like to go back and ask my people, so I heard this complaint and tell me why are they complaining. My sense is right now e-visas is working. In fact, the period, we stopped it during COVID. There was an enormous demand from, especially from the diaspora, saying, come back to e-visas because for us that's the easiest way. I mean, of course, I would advise all of you to apply, whoever is eligible for OCI. That would make it even easier. But those who haven't or cannot, I would certainly recommend e-visas.
Namaskar, sir. My name is Bhaskar Sharma from Toronto Equality News. You have spoken well. We have been following your activities, sir, like the Vice President has said. Aaj jaane na zid na karo. I can say it musically. Aaj jaane na zid na karo. इसके लिए मैं आपको शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ, sir. Please continue. What are we doing for Indian music development in this country? Chatni is making this country crazy. I'm saying proudly because I studied classical music. I had the first vocal music scholarship to Bharatiya Kala in India. We would like to see more of India participation in our music industry. Thank you. इसके लिए मैं आपको शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ.
Maybe Bhaskar should come back from Canada and help to develop it here. Maybe you can come back from Canada and help to develop it.
वो सवाल नहीं था, गाना था तो मैंने सुन लिया.
Hi, good evening, sir. I am Dr. Tembe Pramod. I'm in this country almost almost since 2 decades. So as a doctor, when I came in this country, it was quite devastating. And I mean, when I came, that was in 2005, the infrastructure in health sector was quite bad. Well, we have grown tremendously since 2005 and 2023 now. And I would like to bring this to your notice that, well, we have progressed quite a lot in Guyana, but I think when it comes to research and development, for instance, in stem cells, or for instance, in immunotherapy, for instance, in case if we can integrate medicine into, along with artificial intelligence and develop our system and teach our system to fight certain chronic diseases for which I think the research and development part is lacking. So I would enlighten you to put some
sure.
light on that.
Sure. Look, thank you for the question, but I would say the problem you are talking about is not necessarily limited to a single domain, because normally, if you are looking at, becoming a research hub, it has to reflect the entirety of the environment. Okay, so you need really very strong institutional basis really to emerge as a major research hub. Again, as I said, not just in medicine, it could be other fields. It could be, for example, as the Vice President referred to, in agriculture. So part of what we have committed to do in the last few days is really because, we use this term very frequently, saying knowledge economy. Okay? What does knowledge economy really mean? Knowledge economy means not just a mechanical process of production, but an application of mind, usually through some medium like a chip or whatever it is, that you have creativity in the production or in the the delivery process. So today, how do we build institutions? How do we encourage research? How is there a cross-fertilization? How do we carry experiences from one to the other? This is a challenge. And it is a challenge which is not limited to a single country. I think it's one area where cross-fertilization is very, very useful. I mean, one of the reasons why the United States remains such an open society is because its creativity has actually benefited enormously from that cross-fertilization. So we in India today have become very acutely conscious of it. So we look at the world in a way as a global marketplace for sure, but also as a global workplace. I think it's good when we have the ability to interact with other countries, other societies, look at their challenges and their experiences. This morning, for example, I was discussing with a business person who had accompanied me to Guyana, who's a very leading business in that field. The productivity differences in agriculture between Guyana and India. And clearly, there could be experiences we have had, which would be very useful to share here. There's a lot of interest in the Guyanese government to have experienced agricultural researchers. And I'm sure that would apply in the field of medicine, in the field of pharma, in the field of health as well. I accept your proposition. I just think it's not enough in the world today to say, we are not happy with what we have. We have to move to that next stage of, okay, so what are we doing about it? And if you come to India today, to me, the last 10 years, the real difference in the last 10 years in India is whichever domain you look at. Everybody, it's not just, you don't have to be diaspora Indian. Even the Indians who went abroad, we'd come back and crib about the state of our infrastructure. Now you are actually trying to fix it, and trying to fix it as a comprehensive national effort. We used to, which one of you would not remember this? You'd complain about corruption in India, saying that, there's so much leakage, for every service you've got to pay somebody off. Today, you are actually trying to fix it by using digital delivery. When you do cashless payments, when you actually have things digitized, when your entitlement is known, when someone who expects to receive a service can tell you on the phone, you're going to get the service, and you confirm you got that service. So what has happened? This perennial complaint about corruption in India, today, that has come down dramatically. That the average person doesn't feel that for the basic services of life, you got to pay somebody. So I accept your proposition. I think it's up to all of us to find solutions. So we have a big telemedicine initiative. It's not something we have done with Guyana, but I'd be happy to look at it. Thank you for the thought.
Narayan Joshi, that's my name. I'm a radiologist, working for a private hospital for 16 years. First of all, I really thank you. This is my first ever interaction with an EAM of my own country. Though I don't belong to that country no more, I am an OCI citizen and a very proud Guyanese citizen at that too. Forgive me asking this question. 170 years and more, indentured laborers came to India, to Guyana. They were ruled by the same colonizers which colonized India and Guyana. Britain was the first to actually waive off the visa requirements for Guyanese to travel to Britain. Now, suddenly I see my president, my honorable, His Excellency, Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali, is a chief guest at Pravasi Bharatiya Sammelan, and my vice president, Honorable Jagdev, visiting India, and now my honorable external affairs minister coming here. Is it true love or is it oil love? Forgive me. Forgive me.
No, look,
But
I would say true love or non-true love is in the eyes of the beholder. To, I'm a very convinced proponent of true love in my personal life and in my diplomatic activities as well. But look, again, you know, I say this to you very, very sincerely. Yes, you told me you've been here 16 years, whatever, 20 years. But for someone coming, an Indian coming to this country and, you know, looking at the history of this country, what the people went through. Forget for a moment what you call the oil love, okay? Think of our relationship 5 years. Think of our relationship when you were going through, you know, your own problems a few years ago, okay? Or go back a decade or 2 or 3. I see examples of our relationship starting, I called on the Honorable Speaker. Now, in the Parliament, he told me that the Speaker's chair was gifted by India. So, you know, you have every right to be cynical. That's your personal privilege. But forgive me if I don't join you in that.
one of the reasons I left the country was because of the government at that time, which was the Congress government, remember. I learned from my Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move to the next question.
Namaste, we are not strangers. We met many moons ago through a mutual friend, Secretary Jaishankar, and I'm referring to Amit Mitra. I was born in Guyana, but I went to work for AT&T, and I was part of the AT&T team that founded Tata Birla AT&T, which is today Vodafone ID. So unlike many of my compatriots, I had the good fortune of seeing India struggle from having very little connectivity to being the undisputed champion today in digital transformation. We also share a common denominator. I was part of Tata. I ran Tata Latin America. So I know a lot about that great company. For you, two important questions. India's bid to become a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council and the overwhelming importance of Latin America in support of India's long denied role as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Because in my opinion, the Security Council of today, the permanent membership reflects more of the post-World War II. So I'd like you to address that in the context of your presence here and in wider Latin America. The second has to do with India's role as a member of the Quad. And given the ongoing border incursions into India by belligerent China. And I go as far, we'll go back as recent as what we're seeing in Arunachal Pradesh and the recent visit by Minister Amarnath. I know India is in a precarious position. You want to have a part.
Could I get the question?
Yeah, well, it's two-part, and it's for you to answer. Thank you.
What was the second question?
About the Quad and India's role as a member of the Quad.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Look, the answer, one on the UN Security Council. India is today the most populous country in the world. It's the 5th largest economy. It makes its contributions to the world felt in many, many ways. So very objectively, we think we are a deserving candidate. But I also want you to understand, this is not just about India. You know, all of Latin America is not represented in the UN Security Council. All of Africa is not represented in the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council was decided in the 1940s, which was 80 years ago. And the world, surely nobody can deny that, has changed in those 80 years. So the point we make is it's honest for the UN members to sit down and evaluate their system and decide what they wish to keep, what they wish to change, which parts of it are working well, which parts of it are not. And it's like you would do, you know, we have both worked in a company, you would audit a company, after all you audit a government. And if in 5 years in an election, actually people pass verdict on a government, surely after 80 years, the world is entitled to pass a verdict on the UN and say, okay, you know, the UN is working, it's not working, it needs improvement. So, and my sense is that sentiment is growing with time, and recent events, if anything, have underlined that, you know, the UN's credibility actually has come under challenge because it doesn't command the representation which makes it as credible as it should. On the Quad issue, you know, there's a lot of polemic, there's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of this fantasy politics writing about Quad. Here's the bottom line. The Quad is 4 countries who are, in a sense you can say, in 4 corners of the Indo-Pacific, who happen to be, as I said, political democracies, market economies, pluralistic societies, who feel today that the 4 of them working together on global issues make for a better world. Now, you know, it's often the whole Quad, not accidentally, is dumbed down to a China issue. I think it doesn't do justice to these 4 countries. They have a life and a personality beyond China. I mean, you cannot say the US, Japan, India, and Australia exist because there's a China problem. Each one of them has their own identity, their own interests. They see benefits in working together. And I think it's a completely reasonable proposition. And now that they've started to work together, as the last 6 years have shown, actually they're discovering more and more things to do.